Alright guys, so I'm actually kind of happy with how the exhaust turned out. It does sound okay. It did harden. The goop stuff that I put on there, it did harden, so if it cracks and leaks later, I will go back over it with like an RTV or a copper gasket maker, something like that, but gooping the stuff in there did actually work. So I'll give you a little bit of a listen. It does sound okay. Alright, so running it for a little bit, that's the longest I ran it so far. I did find some leaks on the transcooler, so I'm going to have to fix that. I'm not sure why it's leaking there. It looks like it's leaking from the inverted flare fitting. So I thought those were seated all the way, but I guess not, because it's leaking from both. So I'll take care of that, but what I'm going to do today, I'm going to weld all the way around this tank. So this is like an eBay expansion tank. And the threads got kind of biffed in shipping, so I'm not going to be able to use those threads. Instead of cutting new threads on it, I think I'm just going to cut this whole threaded section off. And then it came with different size fittings on there. I'm just going to weld the fitting right on instead of having the threads. And as I said in a previous video, I don't really like that the edges of this are ground down. All the seams are ground down. So I feel like that's going to weaken it. And I'll probably never be able to see inside there. But looking inside the hole, you can see that the penetration isn't all the way through the joint, all the way around. There's like a couple spots in the corners where it seems like it's decent, and then the connection on the bottom where the pieces are joined together, you can only see the penetration in parts of it. So instead of pressure testing it and seeing if it leaks or blows open, I'm just going to go through and weld the whole thing. So I can tell from looking on the inside of the joint that this is a flat piece, and then the ends were kind of put on over the top of it. So I'll probably run the bead a little bit closer to the edge of this side here to get the seam. And I think it'll look better that way too, honestly. Then you'll actually get to see the bead all the way around. I kind of like that look a little bit better than this. Okay, so I got this thing off. I put some sealer inside there. If that sealer doesn't work, I will just weld these on. This one actually leaked. I did start it and run it again. I did a full heat cycle on the truck, and that fitting didn't leak. This fitting did leak. So I re-gooped this one, and this sealer, I've never had this sealer leak before. So it might just be the threads are really bad on that, and I don't think the flare is seated all the way against the flare on the inside here. So either that or I just over tightened it, because the threads are kind of like galled up on the inside of there. So I don't know if that's going to work. I might just have to weld it. This is the sealant I use, this Rector Seal 5 soft set, slow dry soft set. So maybe I didn't let it sit long enough, but it's supposed to be good for immediate use, and I've never had a leak before using that stuff. So this is the first time that I've used that and it's ever leaked. So it's a really good sealer. I also got this tank in and mounted, so my battery died and I ran out of memory all at the same time while I was welding that thing. So you probably got a good welding shot. And then while I was charging and everything, I just hooked this back up. So I'm reusing the factory line. And then I just took a piece of aluminum flat and then welded it to the bottom. And then I used the existing bolt hole. It is a little bit wobbly. So what I'll probably end up doing is using this bracket here and then making a bracket that goes down to this hole down here, because it's used to have this little like battery tray type thing. I took all that stuff out, so I have an open mounting spot, and it's perfectly in line with this little bracket right here that's already threaded. So that'll kind of kill two birds with one stone. It'll keep it from wobbling, and it'll answer the question of why I have a bracket here that's not being used. So I didn't pressure test this tank at all. I'm kind of just going to wing it. I feel pretty confident with the welds and going over the seams. So I'm just gonna go with it. I did heat cycle the truck. You can see it's starting to get a little bit of color in the exhaust housing. So I ended up filling the radiator back through here. I did have to drain pretty much all the coolant out of it because this fitting here used to come to the heater hose and then up to the bottom of that main tank. So I eliminated that hose and then it's just going straight to the heater hose now. So then when I refilled everything, I refilled it through the top hose into the block. And then I actually took this thing and I held it out here. I put it up on top of the radiator and then held it out up in the air so I could fill this thing, and then this would be the highest point because it's a little bit lower than the highest point right now. So I held it up a little bit higher and fully heat cycled it so the fluid could expand. I made sure that the thermostat opened and cycled all the air out of it. And then I let this thing sit up on top of the radiator and kind of draw some of the fluid back in, make sure all the air bubbles are out. So it's kind of hard to tell, I guess, where the fluid level is, but it is coming down as the fluid's cooling. I'm going to check it tomorrow when it's fully cool. And then I might pull a little bit of fluid out of this so it's about half filled or like an inch or two below. Then I'll put the cap on and then it should be good, and then leave room for some expansion. Other than that, the exhaust actually doesn't sound too bad. I kind of didn't really like the sound at first, but then after letting it run and heat cycle for a little bit, I kind of started to like the sound. Could have been the fumes, but I did start to like it. It does have a low tone. I mean, it's obviously louder than normal, but it does have a low tone. It doesn't have that kind of like raspy downpipe sound to it. It's loud, but it's a smooth low tone, if that makes sense. So going through the list, I think we can probably cross some stuff off. So fill the fluid. I did fill the trans fluid. I didn't do the transfer case yet. I did do the crossover. I did do the downpipe. I didn't do the oil dipstick. I got the wastegates done. Turbo manifold is done. Measure for the rear shaft. I didn't do that yet. I didn't install the shaft. Exhaust and downpipe is done. Shape tube for fit through frame, that's all done. Didn't do the catch can, didn't do the PCV yet. So starting to cross some more things off the list. I'm gonna let these things fully set overnight and then I'll test it tomorrow. Thanks for watching and have a good one.